Hello everybody, we are here with your Merlin guide. We are going to be starting off with Mage's Blessing, Tier 1, a Lost Artifact, 2 Health Potions, 3 Mana Pots, our Purification Beads, of course. Merlin is one of the more intimidating mages in the game. When you first start playing, I don't necessarily think he's one of the most difficult, but he is one of the most intimidating by the nature of having so many abilities. He's basically Smite's Invoker, just not nearly as complicated once you actually get into him. So we're going to be starting in our Arcane Stance, and we are going to keep it that way, and we are going to put a point into our 1, and we're going to be using this to clear here at speed. We're going to have a lot of abilities to discuss and go over. So our 1 here in our air stance, this is our Arcane Stance. This is going to do initial damage when we throw out this ability. As you can see by the indicator, the farther you throw out this ability, the bigger the circle is going to be. The reason why the circle is relevant is because not only does it do initial damage, but it is also a bleed. So anybody within that circle will continue to take damage. So you get initial damage, then you get damage per tick, and that lasts for 3 seconds. I am not going to stance switch quite yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until I get into lane. Then I'm going to pop my Arcane 1 again. And then I'm going to switch over and use my Fire 1, thus allowing me to out clear this enemy Merlin. Now I need to be a little bit careful over here. I don't want to start this red buff too early because then I'll take a lot of damage. I want to wait until my 1's a little bit closer to coming up. That way I can start it up and burn through the red a little bit faster without having to sit there and take too much damage from the upgraded red damage. So now that we're over in Fire Stance, let's talk a little bit about our Fire 1. Maybe we'll just go through and talk about every ability's 1 first before we talk about their 2s. Might be the easiest way to keep this under control. So Fire 1, this is going to be a line in front of me. This is a channeled ability. That means that I have to keep it going the entire time. I can right click to get out of it if I want to, thus of course canceling the ability and any damage that would come from it. But it's going to do initial damage per tick, and it's also going to do burn damage. So much like our 1, there is kind of an initial damage aspect of this, and then there's that bleedy aspect of it as well. At level 3, we're going to pick up our 3. We can talk about our 3 as well, because our 3 is the exact same in every single ability. Our 3 is going to be our Flicker, which is basically a very short range but completely instant teleport. This is kind of a little unique ability. It is a teleport. It's not a leap, it's not a dash, it is a teleport. So it has kind of its own rules that go along with it. And so it is as instant cast as anything can get in Smite. It's on a fairly long cooldown, so you got to be careful when you're using it. 24 seconds, that's really long as far as getaway skills are concerned in Smite, but you click it, boom, instantly teleport a very, very short range. This cooldown is shared between all of your different stances. Now that we're in our ice stance, we can talk about our ice 1. Our ice 1 is a little bit different than our other 2 stances. This is going to be a burst damage ability. You just throw out a line. When it hits a minion or a god, it is going to explode and do a little AoE damage, but mostly it's going to be single target and burst. The thing about this ability is that it does bonus damage if the target has been hit basically by a previous cold ability. In other words, your 2 in ice stance. So it does an additional 15% if it hits an enemy. If they are slowed, the way that that's relevant for you is, of course, through your 2 in ice stance. This is going to slow them, so you can hit them with that, and then follow up with your 1, and you're going to get that nice little bonus damage. speaking of twos, let's go through all of our twos. So in Ice Stance, we have ourselves a damage per tick area of effect ability. So we're going to be able to rain down some ice from the sky. Anybody caught in that area will take damage while they're inside of it. They will also be slowed. That slow will stack as well. The more you get hit by it, the more you will continually be slowed by 8% over and over and over again. So that slow can stack up real quick. Most commonly, you're going to use it first and then follow up with your 1, so that way you get that bonus damage on your 1. Keep in mind that your Frostbolt here is also the lowest cooldown in Merlin's kit. It is only 6 seconds. So it is also a very good spam ability. Heading back over to our Arcane Stance so we can talk about it too. The 2 in your Arcane Stance is going to be a pull. This is going to bring units towards the center of this ability. So it's an instant grab when it goes, so it's going to basically just yeet them right to the center. So if I want to pull these guys in, I throw down that 2, it's going to knock them right to the center of the ability. There is a small delay on the explosion of this ability, so you do have to time it out right. You can't just throw it out willy-nilly. You can watch. There is going to be, if I like throw it out towards this Merlin, he will have an opportunity to flicker right on out of that. I'm going to flicker to the other side of that Mercury. I knew he was going to try to dash me. Because this is not a dash, when I use my 3, I literally teleport to the other side of him, so he has no opportunity to grab me through that. Finally, the last regular ability we haven't talked about, our Fire 2. Fire 2 is pretty straightforward. You're going to throw out a another ability that is AoE. In general, the 1s are a little bit more single target focused in Merlin's kit. The 2s are a little bit more AoE focused. And so what that is going to do is there will be 3 separate little damage targeters on this ability. So you can see there's a left side, a right side, and a middle to that ability. What you're trying to do is hit that right in that sweet spot in the middle. And what it's going to do is you're going to get damage per time on the whole thing. But if you have them caught in the center of the ability, so in the center of that targeter where you want them, it is also going to be a protection shred. So this is a protection shred as well as damage. Finally, our stance switch is also an ability. You start with your stance switch on Merlin, but it does not have an effect. Much like the way other stance switchers work as well, like Hal and Uller. You will start with your stance switch, but it doesn't actually really do anything other than stance switch you until you put a point into it. On Merlin, this is super important because your stance switch is going to do different things depending on your forms. So if you're switching to or from a form, it is going to proc on this. So that means you're procking 2 of these every single time that you do it. So if you proc 2 or out of your fire stance, you are going to do damage. If you proc 2 or from your ice stance, it is going to be a slow. And if you go to or from your arcane stance, it is going to be a little knockup. So if I'm in fire stance and I switch to arcane, it's going to do bleed and knockup. So if I go over, arcane does bleed, does knockup. And that damage, knockup, slow, everything on this ability is right around your character. All of those effects are going to take place in a little circle around Merlin. Be careful. Finally, let's talk about our passive, because we haven't gone through everything yet. Merlin's got a lot of stuff. Finally, we got our passive. His passive is actually really straightforward, though. It's basically a little Polynomicon. Every time that you use an ability on him, you are going to basically get a little stack. That little stack you can see down on your bar will last for 5 seconds. You can have up to 2 of them stacked at the same time, and then your next autos will have enhanced damage. So you can see right here, damage 10 plus a little magical power scaling. You can have those charges going up to 3. It's really only 2 because in one stance. In order to get 3, you have to do a stance switch, which is fine. Those also will proc regardless. I'm gonna be in trouble. Oh my goodness, I barely got away with that. I totally forgot what I was saying because I was trying to avoid a shakedown. Those will proc regardless of actually landing the autos. Those will proc regardless of landing your autos. So if you miss, you still lose that effect. That's what I was trying to say before I was getting scared out of my mind. Okay, as far as our build is concerned, what we want the most on Merlin is cooldown. He has very, very good base damage. As long as you can switch back and forth between your abilities, you have 4 abilities worth of damage, which means your biggest concern is just making sure that those cooldowns are up. So we've gotten our Mage's Blessing, our cooldown boost to get that 20% CDR online ASAP, but we're also going to grab Doom Orb. Doom Orb is such a strong mage item right now. You buy it on every single mage in the mid lane. Simply too good to not get. They reduced the cost of it recently, and now its cost efficacy is out the wazoo. So our 4th item in this game is going to be a Chronos Pendant. Going to give us that 40% CDR, plus of course the extra CDR that we get from the Chronos Pendant passive to make sure that we can spam our abilities as much as possible. For our leveling order, we grab our 4 whenever we can. We grab our ultimate whenever we can on Merlin. That is because this is going to reduce the cooldown of our stance switch. The more we can stance switch. Oh, that's a dance. The more we can stance switch, the more we are able to use our abilities. Also keep in mind that for Merlin and any other god really that has passive auto attack buffs like this, I showed you right there in that ward, I used an ability and then I auto attack the ward, and it actually counts as 2 attacks against the ward. Not super important, but you know, every once in a while that might help you get some extra damage off. Excuse me, not get extra damage off. That might help you clear a ward in time. Particularly can be important around sentry wards when it's objective time. In general, all of your stances on Merlin are good. People are kind of always like, hey, what 2 stances I'm supposed to use? You're supposed to use all 3. They all have things that they're good at, so let's kind of go over that. Arcane Stance is great at long-range poke. Another Patriot has fallen. As well as objective team fights. So whether that's a team fight around a Phoenix or a team fight around a fire giant, Arcane Stance is big AoE damage, and so it's great for zoning people as well as doing just good raw damage. Your fire stance is probably the most simple of all the stances. It is really good at doing point blank damage to people, as well as shredding the fire giant and the gold fury because it's got that protection shred on it. You're mostly using this in close range as well as on the 2 major objectives. Obviously not relevant to Phoenix and stuff because abilities don't hit Phoenixes. Finally, your ice stance. This is kind of your all-around usage stance. It's got pretty good range damage. It's got a very low cooldown 1. It's got a little bit of CC. It is good in all situations. It's good in team fights. It's good against objectives. It's good all around. There's never a bad time to be in your ice stance. So if you're not sure what stance to go to your ice stance. So speaking of our stances, you can see down on our passive bar the order of our stances. This is Arcane, Fire, and Ice. So this order means 1, 2, and 3. The reason why that is relevant for us is a lot of people don't know that you actually choose the stance that you go to next on Merlin. So if you don't choose a stance at all, it is going to choose the next stance in line. So if I click my ultimate and don't do anything else, it's going to go to Arcane Stance because that was the next one in line. From ice to arcane to fire to ice to arcane to fire. But you do not have to go in that order. What you can do instead is you can switch to any stance that is not the one that you're already in. You obviously can't switch to the stance you're already in because you're in it. Thus, no switching necessary. But if I want to switch from my arcane stance to my ice stance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my ultimate, and while I'm in my little ultimate, I'm going to click 3. So ulti 3, and it's going to switch me over to the ice stance. If I wanted to switch to my fire form, I could have either clicked nothing. Wow, Mercurial. I could have clicked nothing because fire stance would have been my next stance by default, or I could have just clicked fire 2. I'm always in the habit of clicking the stance that I want. That way you just get into the swing of things. So if I want to go from ice stance right now back to arcane stance, even though I could just click my ulti and I don't have to click 1, I'm going to click ulti 1 anyway. That way I always know what stance I'm going into. So arcane 1, fire 2, ice 3. So if I want to go from here to here, ulti 2. If I want to go from here to here, ulti 1. That is how you proper switch stances on Merlin. Now we've got our full CDR online, we can start getting pretty aggressive here on our boy. We got nice damage online, and we're ready for action. My next item, I'm going to get a Karen's coin. Going to help me get some nice percent pen, as well as some extra movement. Karen's coin's movement on the stacks combined with the movement that you get from Doom Orb is very powerful, and it's nice on a god like Merlin, who, while he does have a little escape skill, it can be a pretty long cooldown, and it's not a very long range. So something even like a Nike-ul, even if I flicker, I'm still going to be stuck inside of her ulti range. Like, it's very short. So I'm not even going to be able to flicker outside of the range of her ulti. They've got Oracle Vision on the gold, so we're going to head back over to the mid lane. On Merlin, you've got a lot of abilities. Let's talk about them and how they interact with walls. Your ice stance does not go through walls. You throw that right into a wall, nothing is going to happen. Your 2, you can, of course, throw over a wall. So if I want to hit somebody over a wall, I can just throw that out into the world. But your ice form 1 will not go through the wall. Your flicker does go through walls. It's just a very short duration, but like I can hop that little itty bitty wall. It's less of a wall hop and more of like a corner hop. So use it accordingly.
Enemy missing.
Our Arcane Stance. Both of these abilities will go through walls, so I can throw my 1 all the way through and then follow up the 2 to get that pull effect off. So you can throw both of those through walls. And for our fire form, this is the one that people probably know about the least. This also does go through walls. I'm going to switch to my ice stance right now so I can get some extra damage from the range on the Xing 10. Got to be a little bit careful. I see the Mercury running away. Perfecto. I'm going to clear this wave on my way up. Got my ultimate stance switch coming back up soon. Keeping an eye on my actives. I'm going to be a little aggressive here. I think I saw the Merlin go back mid. He did. So I'm going to try to land some abilities on him and be able to kill him underneath his tower. So on our fire form, your 2, oh, that was nice knowing you guys. Nike didn't rotate to that battle. Well, we're going to get the Gold Fury for this. That's actually okay. Your fire form 1 does go through walls. So it is a channeled ability, but it will do that damage through the wall. Your 2 will obviously go through walls because you throw it out like all the other 2s. But the fire 1 will continue to do that damage through a wall. So don't be afraid to use it if you've got a little wall in your way. For matchups here on Merlin, Merlin is a late game mate. His early game is not bad at all. The reason why his early game isn't bad is because he actually has a really good lane clear. as well as pretty safe lane clear. You can, for the most part, stand back near your tier 1 tower and throw out things like your Arcane 1, like your Ice 2, and clear the wave pretty safely. So you're not going to go full ham kills in the early game usually, but you will be able to safely farm, thus making him a very strong mage at high-end gameplay, because he can pretty consistently get to that team fight 20-minute marker without falling too far behind, if any, and then you transition into this many ability, super long-ranged poke and damaging god. So what that means for us here on Merlin is some of our harder matchups are actually going to be early game matchups. He can struggle a little bit against gods that are super aggressive, super strong early. Like I said, that is not where he particularly thrives. So I would be careful about gods that want to aggress on you very, very early. Something like Izanami comes to mind, where she can clear the wave really well and go for the really early fight. So be careful of any god that can do that, but more importantly than gods that want to fight you in the early game, you have to be careful for cripples. Cripples are detrimental for Merlin. You cannot use your flicker. You cannot use your flicker if you are crippled. So gods like Cupid decimate Mercury. Decimate Mercury. I'm fighting a Mercury. Decimate Merlin. Ardio is so bad for you to try to fight. They basically just walk up to you and kill you instantly. I'm gonna die here, but I am gonna be able to throw my arcane abilities on my feet in order to kill the Merlin. Nike is actually a very hard god for you to go against on Merlin. We talked about it a little bit earlier. No matter what I do, I have no way to escape Nike's range, okay? There's no way for me to go away from her. Her jump is way better than my flicker. She can ulti me if she's standing near melee range, and even if I flicker at max range as far as I can away, I will not be able to get out of her slow, so I've got to beads her slow. She can chase me down with her one, all sorts of stuff like that. So those gap closers that are going to get in your face can be very problematic, but particularly cripples are what is going to really ruin your day. So somebody like Ardio that can slow you from afar and then get in range to cripple you, or if she just buys a blink and then can cripple you right off the bat, that sucks. Now that we've got some penetration going, I'm gonna start working on my Rod of Tahuti just for some raw power. Get it out here in the field. As far as guys that we like going against on Merlin, Merlin doesn't, I wouldn't say love going against anybody in the laning phase. For him, it's more about the late game. Merlin is arguably top 3 late game mages. And a lot of that just comes down to the fact that what are you doing in the late game? You are attacking or defending phoenixes. Well, Merlin happens to thrive at both of those things because he has so many abilities and because of their AoE. Gotta flicker myself right out of that Mercury ult. Come back in, get some more poke on these guys. It means that you just absolutely decimate at the late stages of the game. Really, once you get into the team fights, 20 plus, but even more so once you get closer to the actual Phoenix fire giant fights. I gotta be very careful against this Nike, so I'm gonna play it back, head over towards the Gold Fury. They do have oracles on Gold Fury. I know Mercury ultimate is down. I'm gonna try to head over here and help. I'm gonna use my flicker aggressively. Not quick enough to save the Izanami, but she does actually get that kill right there by herself. Makes it a nice 1-for-1 trade. We really should walk over to the gold. Merlin can burn objectives real quick. We love Merlin as an objective shredder. Gonna start in my ice form, switch over to my fire form, so I'm actually gonna get damage from that ice going with the transformation as well, and then finish it up with a couple of my auto attacks. So I got the damage from ice 2, ice 1, fire 2, fire 1, as well as the actual transform damage itself. switch myself over to Arcane form. Generally on Merlin, I like to just walk around in Arcane Stance. So when you're not doing anything in particular, Arcane Stance I find is going to be some of the best self-peel. So not only can you use the 2 aggressively, you can use it defensively. So instead of throwing it out really far, you throw it right down on your feet. So that way if a melee character is chasing behind you, you can throw down that and they will be pulled away from the direction that you ended up running. We tried to do that earlier against the Mercury and we ended up killing each other at the exact same time, actually. Switching back over my Arcane Stance. Arcane Stance is also generally your longest, easiest poke to hit. And we like poke, don't we? Yes, we do. For our standard combo on Merlin, it's usually in the late stages of the game going to be Arcane into Ice form. That is because we talked about how Merlin really doesn't want to be in those close ranges against other gods because he struggles to get away from enemies. That means that your Fire Stance is really a last resort if somebody is already in that range of you and not so much a, hey, let's go be a brawler in that close melee range. Not going to be able to pick that up right there. So I'm going to throw down my Arcane Stance. I'm going to throw down that on myself, and then I'm going to get absolutely murdered by a Nike because she crushes Merlin. So you got to see right there basically what Nike did. She literally just waited for my a couple of my abilities to come out. She jumps right on top of me. She throws down my ulti. I have to decide whether I want to beads a slow. Nobody wants to bead a slow. And so I'm going to save my actives and just die right there. So you're going to start off with your combo. You're going to throw out your Arcane 1 and then your 2. Going to get that damage off. And then after they get pulled, you're going to throw down the Ice form 2 and then the 1 on wherever they land. So Arcane starts it off. 1, 2. Ice follows up on it with the 2, 1. If anybody's diving you in melee range and you feel like you can kill them, then you can switch over to your Fire Stance. But for the most part, you're going to be using your Arcane Stance and Ice for the longer range poke, as well as some of the peel. Your Fire form really doesn't. Your Fire form really doesn't have any peel for you. And half of Merlin is trying to find ways to make his kit peel against gods that are really good sticking to you. Before I get rid of this Mage's Blessing, I am going to level up my actives here first on Merlin. Having my beads and Aegis up a little bit more often will be helpful. Hopefully helps us get away from a couple of bad fights. So I'm going to focus on doing that next. See if my Izanami needs help over here. Just going to throw down a couple of abilities to hopefully peel from long range. Unfortunately, Nike is back again. Time to go. Gotta go, go, go. He can just keep basically holding down the W key forever. I'm gonna switch back over to my Arcane Stance. Tell everybody to retreat. They do have the Fire Giant, so we should be defending on our Phoenixes at this point. Wasn't able to get the Izanami out of there. And now we get to the Phoenix stage of the game. So Merlin's abilities will take up most of the lane. You can see right here, I can throw out this 1, and if they want to run into that range, they basically just got to run through dot damage. Your job on these Phoenix defenses is you're prioritizing that minion clear. If you clear the minions with your abilities, at least with your first wave of Arcane Stance, you should get a little bit of poke on them as the enemy is trying to come in, but you will also stop them from getting any of that backdoor Phoenix damage, which is going to do more than anything to help your Phoenix live. So after you throw out that Arcane 1, you can start to use the rest of your abilities on the enemy gods. You should only need to use the Arcane 1 in order to clear those minions out. Enemies got Fire Giants, so we're standing back by our Phoenixes. We are chilling. We do not defend T2s in Smite Season 7. After the enemy has Fire Giant ever, it is just not worth it. The Tier 1, Tier 2 towers in Smite are complete pushovers, and there's way too much room to get wrapped around upon. You need too many wards, and it's too risky. The Phoenix, on the other hand, puts you real nice and close to your fountain, gives you a lot of opportunities, and you can have that area real warded up. So it's nice for the defense. For our last item here, we're going to be getting rid of that Mage's Blessing. I really don't need a cooldown item to replace it. As long as I replace either Mage's Blessing or cooldown boots with one cooldown item, then that plus our red potion will still keep us at 40% CDR. So it really does open up the doors. A lot of people like Soul Gem on Merlin. Because you've got so many abilities, you can get those Soul Gem procs really fast. That'll also give you that 10% CDR back. So it's a very good item. Or you can go something with a little bit more raw damage. This is pretty risky of us to be moving out this far. So you can see Nike is just basically holding down the W key. We're getting real aggressive outside of our Phoenix right now, which is a little silly. You really shouldn't be leaving the Phoenix range when you get to this stage of the game. It's just not really worth it, because now we're gonna definitely lose the Phoenix, and potentially they might be able to end the game here. I'm gonna throw down my one. It's kind of a zoning in between those Phoenixes. Gonna use my flicker to try to get away from the Xing Tian. I see the Nike is coming towards me, so I'm gonna throw down nothing at my feet. And luckily we got a lot of damage on them coming through to that mid Phoenix, so they're actually only gonna be able to get their right side Phoenix, and then their fire giant actually ran off. So we got very lucky right there. So let's get rid of this Mage's Blessing here in 1 second. Let's go with that Soul Gem. It's a good item. It's a fun one too. For those that don't know how Soul Gem works, Soul Gem, you're building up 4 stacks. Every time you successfully hit an ability, you gain a stack. Once you get to 4 of them, your next ability will do an additional 30% magical power scaling to each god hit, and also heal yourself and allies for 40% of your magical power that consumes the stack. And then you start building them up again. So you can see the kind of natural synergy on Merlin. Because you've got so many abilities, you can basically build it up rapid fire and get those healings going. So we're going to get the Soul Gem. We're going to get ourselves a Sentry Ward. We've got 700 magical power. We've got our full 40% CDR still. And we'll sell our cooldown boots. We will not get a CDR item when we replace our cooldown boots, because we will have that red pot. Now we can head over and try to defend this fire giant. This is the enhanced fire giant. We've only lost 1 Phoenix, and it happens to be the Phoenix closest to the fire giant. So that's nice. Our Hades is really far forward. I'm going to try to get over to him, help him out as much as we can. I switch over to my Arcane Stance to be ready for the fight. I'm going to use these abilities over the wall. Got some nice damage there onto the Hachi. Still got to be careful here on this backside. Kind of waiting to see if Xing Tian does anything too crazy. Right now, he's mostly zoning us out from the rest of his team. Fortunately, we can't super get through him. We got to be a little bit careful. I'm just spamming abilities, getting a little bit of heals from the Soul Gem. They're coming back in towards us. That is okay. I'm going to throw down some more abilities. Switch back to my Arcane Stance for that super long range. Just throw out a set of abilities. I don't know if anybody's there. We've got a couple of minions in the Titan room. Not super worried about that. It's just 1 wave. Looks like our Izanami might have even been backing for it. No, we did stop the back. Got to be careful for this Nike. I'm going to flicker into this fight and then use my 3. So this is a very, very risky and aggressive way to use Merlin's flicker. Every once in a while, I don't recommend getting in the habit, okay? Every once in a while, you're going to use your flicker aggressively in order to put yourself in that melee range of an enemy god, because then you can do your stance switch, and your stance switch is a lot of damage. So I stance switched, and I got that fire damage off on them. And then I put me right in that point blank range. and it lets me be right next to them. Or if you use the ice stance, it slows them. Or if you use Arcane Stance, it's a knockup, whatever. It basically sets you up to follow up immediately on it. So it's a very risky play, but if the enemy has their getaway abilities down, or the Hachi, he had used his beads with Aegis, so I knew he had nothing up. It was just a nice situation for me to be able to go in there and rack up those kills. Elixir of Speed, plus another Sentry Ward, so we can get back out towards this fire giant. And all right, Phoenix has come back up. Wonderful. Fantastic. We want to stand back pretty dang far. Try to utilize our Arcane Stance range so we can stay away as much as possible from the Nike, who is going to be so problematic for us. But we also want to make sure that we're actually trying to get poke out. So you've got to kind of play the dance of I'm too close, I'm too far, I'm too close, I'm too far. You got to kind of move in and out. You can see in the Nike's eyes that she wants to go for it. I got too close. That is a Merc ult down, and I'm going to immediately get killed. That is very unfortunate. I had to flicker to get away from the Nike, but the Mercury was sitting there and waiting for me, so he ultied right next to me. I didn't have an Aegis up, so there was really nothing for me to do right there. Tried to get my 2 and my 1 out to get a little self-peel out, but to no avail. Another thing we should mention, as far as team comps go, is what you're trying to pair with a Merlin. So this composition that we have right here is a horrible composition for Merlin. You're really looking for a traditionally defensive support. This game, our support was a Achilles. You're really looking for something more along the lines of a Kumba, a Gab, a Khepri. Merlin can output a lot of damage, but he needs a lot of peel. And so a composition like this has absolutely no peel for Merlin, and he's one of the worst self-peelers when it comes to that. So having a traditional, more Guardian support can often go a long way for Merlin, and trying to kill a Merlin that has like a Khepri with him is quite annoying. So I'm going to throw down that little 2, pulls the Xing 10 right off of me. And then I use my flicker to get ourselves a little distance. Now we're going to sit on back near the Phoenix line. Sitting on back, sitting on back, sitting on back near the Phoenix line. Our job is to kill creeps over all else. That is our #1 priority. So I'm going to keep throwing out that Arcane 1. They're going to full dive me because you know they are. So I'm trying to just get out of the range of the Xing 10 Nike ults. And now I got to go back in and try to get some poke off. We're going to have a nice little follow-up right here, actually. Oh, my goodness. 2,400 Mercury damage. Oh, my. Your boy got absolutely crit to the head in 1 second. And so that is going to be the end of that one. Holy Mercury, Batman. So you got to see the general idea here of the Merlin. He loves those Phoenix fights because you basically just get to sit there and throw out a bunch of AoEs. But you got to be careful with your composition. Nike is so good into Merlin. Xing 10 is great into Merlin. Mercury's also pretty good as well, as long as you're using that ulti and hitting him with it. So this was a horrible composition for us to go into, as well as a really bad team comp that we had as well to pair with a Merlin, guys. But that is your Marlin guide.